Hello and welcome into recap and reactions to week 1 of the 2025 NFL season. I'm your host, Ryan Askew. JJ Watt made Iron Eagle look like a dwarf from Lord of the Rings in the booth.
And my axe.
Let's start with the first matchup of the week, the Cowboys versus the Eagles, where the Eagles ended up taking the win 24-20. The big takeaways for me from this game are that the Cowboys look better than we all thought they were going to look this season. Even though they just lost generational talent Micah Parsons, their defense looked surprisingly good in this game. And Clark, their new addition from Green Bay, actually had an impact on the game a little bit. And Dak Prescott looked like he had something to prove. He was throwing dimes up and down the field. The only problem with that is that none of the receivers knew how to catch the ball in the first game of the season. And if your receivers don't catch the ball, there's no way that you're going to win the game. And out of all the receivers for the Eagles we thought would be good in that game, it ended up being Jahan Dotson who got the most receptions and targets. He ended up bringing 3 receptions in for 59 yards. That's in comparison of Devontae Smith's 3 receptions for 16 yards and AJ Brown's 1 reception for 8 yards. It's like he was like, look, I'm sorry, man. I'll try to get you the ball more next week. Our first ever inaugural Clown of the Week, where I crown that week's NFL Clown for doing something dumb or silly, goes to Jalen Carter, who got himself kicked out of the game before the first defensive snap, which not only screwed his team over and could have cost them the week 1 win, it also got him fined $57,222 for spitting on Dak Prescott. The league also says the game he was ejected for will serve as a 1-game suspension, meaning at least he will get to play for the Eagles next week. But as a veteran in the NFL and the best defensive player on your team, you just can't fall for stuff like that. Dak got you with the perfect little rage bait and you fell for it. Jalen, you gotta be better than that. And for that, you are our clown of week 1 of the NFL season. The next game we had on Friday night saw the Chargers taking on the Chiefs, in which the Chiefs looked like the same Chiefs from the Super Bowl of last year. They couldn't get a running game going at all, with only 10 carries between their top 2 running backs combined. Not to mention, it seemed like the whole team was imploding and yelling at each other when you got the whole season ahead of you. Oh, not to mention that Travis Kelce totally took out Xavier Worthy because he must have been annoyed by him and wanted more targets this year. Guy's doing his last year or 2 in the NFL. He wants the most targets as possible, and he can't have young receivers like Worthy coming in here taking his spotlight. Anyways, is the Chiefs dynasty over? Well, I don't know if the Chiefs dynasty is over, but they very well might be 0-2 after next week when they take on the Eagles, who just came off that win against the Cowboys. The Chiefs held my fantasy running back Omarion Hampton to 15 carries for only 48 yards. The Chargers finally ended up overcoming a team that they have not been able to beat very much at all with Justin Herbert at quarterback. In fact, he's only beat them 1 time in the last 10 appearances until this last game. He's now beat Mahomes 2 times. Just goes to show when you start dating a really hot woman, your performance does go up. Not just in one way, but in multiple ways. Also, Justin Herbert gets credit for the slickest slide of the week. The Chargers could be sneaky this year if they decide not to charger it up and lose when it counts most. I must have been the only person who thought that the Miami Dolphins were actually going to be good this year, or at least average. But what the heck was that, Dolphins? What the heck? 8 points in garbage time against the Colts, who many were predicting to be a first-round pick next year? And Danny Dimes over on the Colts, more like Danny Prime Times. Daniel Jones looked like an elite quarterback, almost revitalized because he's not having to play with the Giants anymore. My guy went 22 for 29 and threw for 272 yards and 1 touchdown on the game. Where Tua only went 14 for 23, he only threw for 114 yards. He ended up throwing 2 interceptions and fumbled the ball away once. And his top receiver was really thrilled about it. Look at him here being really thrilled about it. Are the Colts good this year? Our next matchup saw the Steelers taking on the Jets. And the funniest thing about this matchup was that both quarterbacks played for the opposite teams last year. So it basically wasn't just a revenge game. It was a double revenge game for both these guys. A game that saw both defenses that I predicted would be pretty good this year absolutely being the opposite in this game. But where I wasn't wrong is that I thought the Steelers would win this game. And it may have been very close, but they still won, so I was right. Aaron Rodgers hurled 4 touchdowns in this game, absolutely going off against his former team, and he had this to say in his post-game interview.
I was happy to beat everybody associated with the Jets.
Yes, the team that made him fly all the way across the country just to tell him that they didn't want him to be their quarterback anymore. But hey, Jets fans, don't get too upset. Justin Fields looked really good yesterday, and you guys should feel really good about that because he's the best quarterback you've had since Mark Sanchez. It's been a really long time since you guys have had a good quarterback. At least the Steelers and the Jets don't have to deal with a player like Bryce Young.
He was watching the helmet. He was watching the helmet.
was found watching the helmet game instead of actually paying attention to his team's huddle. And the funny thing about this is you think in a year where he would need to be really focused on what he's doing to save his job and his potential as a career starter in the NFL, you'd think he'd be paying more attention. The guy seems totally checked out, and already in week 1, that's a really bad sign for the Panthers, as the Jaguars, who rushed for a ton of yards in this game, ended up picking up a 26-10 win. Moving on to my Arizona Cardinals versus the Saints. I picked the Cardinals at -6.5 in this game, and they won it. But boy, did they make it real close for everybody. Kyler Murray did have an absolutely beautiful pass to Marvin Harrison Jr., but why do I feel like he still struggled looking over his O-line or finding open receivers all game? As someone who's had to deal with the Kyler Murray experience for what I consider to be way too long at this point, it's really frustrating for me to see him continue to scramble, continue to give up on plays, continue to not pass the ball quick enough so that he ends up getting sacked, and a lot of times when he gets sacked, he runs 15 yards backwards before getting sacked. Not to mention that his demeanor anytime things go wrong go from big heroic quarterback to really tiny pouty baby. Speaking of baby, Kyler Murray looked like a toddler fitted in his finest clothes walking into the stadium. I mean, dude, come on, you're already as short as I am. The last thing you should be doing is wearing clothes that make you look tinier. But hey, the Cardinals still ended up winning this game despite playing a really sloppy game and only sacking Spencer Rattler 1 time. This bolstered Cardinals defense with the addition of Josh Sweat and Calais Campbell coming back once again. Also with the addition of Will Johnson in the draft, was a team that was touted to be really formidable this year on the defensive side of the ball. So then why were the Saints this close to tying the game at the end of it? Against Spencer Rattler of all people, who we only sacked 1 time. It could be that the Cardinals defense did not play as good of a game as we were expecting in week 1, or that Spencer Rattler's actually going to be pretty decent this year. But that interception that the Cardinals had in the first half that the refs took away for no reason because of an incidental illegal contact on the other side of the field was total bullcrap, okay? That was an interception all day. Moving on, I warned you guys. I told you in my first ever video on this channel just a few days ago, Giants fans, look out for Russell Wilson because he's gonna Russell Wilson the crap out of this game.
Hey, you wanna split this Subway sandwich?
My ceiling for the total amount of points I thought they would score this week was at 16. And boy did they deliver. Russell Wilson and the Giants came out and laid down a whopping 6 points. It's only week 1 of the season, but I can imagine that wins don't get much easier than that. I don't know how many teams we have to see Russell Wilson fail at in his old age for a team that has him to finally be like, hey, I think you should finally retire, dude.
You ever done anything dangerous?
Russell was good back when he was with the Seahawks in his prime, when he had mobility and a little bit of speed, that elusiveness that made him be able to find an open receiver and evade sacks. He doesn't have that anymore. He's a slow old quarterback who gets hit a lot and doesn't throw the ball very well unless he has a Hail Mary in his back pocket. But for some reason, Coach Dayball, who has his job on the line I'm assuming this year if things don't go well, decided that he's gonna start Russell Wilson in week 2. So we're gonna see how this one plays out. But all I have to say is take whoever they're playing next week to win the game. It really doesn't matter who they're playing. Just take them to win because they're gonna beat the Giants next week. Michael Penix Jr. showed off. Penix size really does matter as he stretched out to the end zone to take the lead late in the game against the Buccaneers. Too bad that Baker Mayfield showed that his Penix is longer and led the Buccaneers down for a winning drive. I was so right about Emmanuel Igbuka, and I told my wife to draft him with her fantasy team, so now I don't get to enjoy the spoils of what was an amazing receiver in week 1.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
But Falcons fans, don't be too worried. Michael Penix looks like he could be the franchise quarterback for you guys going forward. He had a very good game, and if he continues that momentum, he and his tight end Pitts might actually have a really good season. Okay, my bold prediction of this week was that the Browns would end up beating the Bengals, and they should have. They should have won. Kickers may miss field goals here and there, but it's not too often you can blame them for solely losing a game. But with an opportunity to beat the Bengals in week 1 when they played absolutely disgustingly bad, you had your chance, and either one of those 2 kicks going in could have won you the game, but instead you had to go brown it up on the football field. At least I got correct my prediction about the spread being plus 5.5 in favor of the Browns. The Bengals never start the season good, guys. Get it together. It won't be till week 5 or 6 till they start playing well. But alas, the Bengals pulled out a 1-point win, even though Jamar Chase owners right now are probably really pissed off. Moving on to the Oakland Raiders versus the New England Patriots. I completely nailed the prediction of this game. The Raiders came in a slight underdog coming coming into the game, and I did not think that that was correct. I thought they'd pull out this win, and I said the reason for it was that Geno Smith has a little more experience than Drake May, and Drake May is just not going to have enough to get the cohesion with this new Mike Vrabel team to end up winning this game. And I was so right. The Raiders barely pulled this one out 20-13. It's going to take some time, Patriots fans, for that team to really get things going together. Don't expect it to happen this year. But if it does happen, it will not happen for the first few games. They need a few games to get the rust to wear off. On the other side of the ball, Ashton Jeanty just does not look like a very good running back to me. Sure, he fought his way in for a touchdown in this game, but I'm not very big on this guy. He was playing against social studies majors in the Mountain West Conference, running up and down the field against them. When you get to play teams like Wyoming and Colorado State, what do you expect's gonna happen, okay? The Raiders pulled off a clean Week 1 win. Moving on to the weird NFC West matchup between the 49ers and Seahawks, where everyone on the 49ers is already injured again this year. George Kittle could miss a few weeks with several injuries related to his body. The body made of glass, they call it. And Brock Purdy's status for Week 2 is up in the air. Not to mention that their kicker, Jake Moody, who had a horrible year last year in his rookie season, really screwed over his chances when he missed 2 kicks in this game. One of them that was blocked and not really his fault, but one of them that was a fairly good gimme kick for any NFL kicker in the league and made Coach Shanahan do this. This game was sloppy on both sides. The Seahawks didn't look very good, but the 49ers didn't look much better.
Jake, is that kicker in any question in your mind whether he's going to be back with the team?
No question.
The Niners are waiving former third-round pick Jake Moody after he missed a pair of kicks in Sunday's win over the Seahawks.
I honestly have no idea which team in the NFC West is going to win this year because all of them looked pretty bad in Week 1. I remember the days where the NFC West used to be the best division in football, and now it could be the worst division in football this year. So you're telling me my Cardinals have a chance?
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
It's been reported that Jake Moody is no longer going to be the 49ers kicker going forward. Bye-bye, Mr. Moody. Reports were saying that he was making his coach a little too moody with his inaccurate kicking. You can go ahead and hit the like button right now, because that was funny. Even with their team playing lackluster this week, they ended up pulling out the victory, 17-13 over the Seahawks. And the Seahawks were the only NFC West team this week to take a loss. Moving on to another lackluster game, the Titans versus the Broncos, where Cam Ward actually looked pretty good despite only throwing barely over 100 yards passing. But when you're going up against one of the best defenses this year in the Broncos, who did look like they're going to be one of the best defenses this year, I mean, you take what you're going to get. It's his first NFL start, and his receivers were dropping passes left and right. He felt like Dak Prescott, and Calvin Ridley probably felt like CeeDee Lamb, except for the fact that CeeDee had a much better game. This game was a snooze fest for a good chunk of the first half, until the Broncos ended up pulling their crap together and ended up pulling this one out 20-13. Now, while the Broncos defense looks really good this year, the Broncos offense so far does not look good at all. So we'll have to wait and see how they look in Week 2 to see if Week 1 was a bit of a fluke, because they were playing the Titans and they really needed to win that one, and they only won by 7. If you're bad, I get more entertaining radio, and then I get to hear Brandon Perna complain on That's Good Sports, which in all actuality is probably really good for his subscriber count. Speaking of sports channels, this is a brand new channel on YouTube, and if you've stumbled across it, I want you to hit that like and subscribe button, because I only have 2 subs going into this video, and I love both of those 2 subscribers. But in order for me to be able to stream and watch Arizona Cardinals games live for you on Sundays, just like the other YouTubers do for their favorite teams, I need at least 50 subscribers to be able to do that. So it'd be very awesome if we could hit my first goal of 50 subscribers. If you guys do this for me, I will pay you back with some really entertaining videos, okay? And weekly updates to die for. Please don't die. Moving on to the Packers and Lions game, another bold prediction out of nowhere. Week 1 overreaction. Are the Packers favorites to win the NFC Championship game this year? Because they sure as heck look like it, dismantling a team that's been there in the last couple years and holding both of their rushers to practically nothing on the ground. David Montgomery was the leading rusher for the team, and he had a whopping 25 yards on the ground. Sam Laporta fans must be happy though. He got 79 yards on 6 catches. On the other side of the ball, this Micah Parsons trade keeps seeming worse by the day, as they absolutely walked all over the Lions all game long, and Parsons played a good role in that. He did have a sack in the game and a lot of QB pressure. Packers fans, I guess good for you. I mean, your team is been good since I was born, and I'm 30 years old, so I am a Cardinals fan. We've had like 3 or 4 good years since I've been alive, but good for you for being good yet again. I'm not salty at all. I'm not upset about it. The Texans and the Rams very well might have been the worst game of the week. I thought the Bears versus Vikings game was going to be the worst game of the week watching it until the 4th quarter hit, and then all of a sudden it was no longer an issue. So my worst game of the week goes to the Texans versus the Rams, which is an absolute snooze fest from beginning to end, and somehow CJ Stroud couldn't overcome a 14-point total by the Rams. I have no idea how the Texans played this badly, but it's probably because I cursed them because I drafted Nico Collins on one of my fantasy teams. It's like everybody I drafted had a horrible game. Matthew Stafford, with his broken back, ended up actually playing pretty well. He went 21 of 29 for 245 yards and 1 tutty, as they ended up pulling out somehow a 14-9 win in what was the worst game of week 1. Texans fans, how you feeling right now? Now we move to our absolute game of the week, which might go down in history as one of the best games of all time, if not the best game of this season at least. The Bills versus the Ravens, which was dominated by the Ravens up until the very end of the 4th quarter, when half the stadium had left and they had given up on their team, even though did they see their team in the last few years and how they're able to go up and down the field at a moment's notice? You have Josh Allen as a quarterback. I thought you were the Bills Mafia. What are you doing? I've always revered the Bills Mafia as one of the best fan bases in football, but I guess even they have bad days, as they left the stadium just to end up missing one of the greatest comebacks of all time. After Derrick Henry fumbled, which set the stage for Josh Allen and the Bills to storm down the field and score, they did just that, and the Ravens defense was no match for them, as they ended up coming back from a 15-point deficit late in the game to win. This game had a ton to see. Of course, the fan pushing Lamar Jackson and DeAndre Hopkins, to which Lamar Jackson responded by pushing the fan, and then the fan got banned from every stadium indefinitely, to Josh Allen calling out his fan base at the end of the game.
Our team didn't quit. I mean, I think there's people that left the stadium. That's okay. We'll be fine, but have some faith next time.
It just goes to prove my point again, just like with Justin Herbert, that when you either start dating or marry a really hot celebrity, your stock is going to go way up. Unless you're Travis Kelce, your stock is going to go way up this season. And after just marrying Haley Steinfeld, I knew for sure that Josh Allen was not going to allow their team to lose this game. And I was sweating it out a little bit, but I ended up being right, so you can't tell me that I was wrong. Next time, Bills fans, don't leave the stadium before your team is done. Real fans stay in the building until sweet victory or disastrous defeat. And as a Cardinals fan, I feel like you should take that advice seriously. I've seen a lot of losing. You can't really blame Derrick Henry for this loss. I mean, come on. He did a really good job running the ball in this game. He had 18 carries for 169 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I know he fumbled the ball away when it mattered. And I know the Ravens lost another close game because they can't ever seem to win when it matters most. But you can't blame Derrick Henry completely for this loss. You gotta blame the defense for not being able to get a single stop on any of the last drives. Bills, fantastic job on getting that win. Then we move on to Monday Night Football, where for the first 3 quarters, JJ McCarthy and Caleb Williams were putting on a snooze fest that almost put me and my dog to sleep. And being someone who needed 29 points from Justin Jefferson going into the game and a bit of a miracle, I was crossing my fingers hoping for a monster game from Justin Jefferson. And then I watched the first quarter, and I knew immediately that that was all over. But then the 4th quarter hit, and JJ McCarthy took a little bit of Michael Jordan's special stuff and went off to help the Vikings end up winning this game against the Bears. I don't know if it was more the Vikings being good or the Bears defense being a Bears defense once again, and their whole organization continuing to be a losing organization. But at least for this week, I will give my props to JJ McCarthy and the Vikings and say good win. But if this trend continues, I'm just going to end up saying same old Bears fans. As well, Caleb Williams did look pretty decent on some of his throws, and he can really zip the ball if he wants to. He makes some of the craziest mistakes when it comes to quarterback play, like stepping out of bounds before throwing a ball, and making some of the worst decisions I've ever seen from a quarterback in the NFL. The Vikings pulled out a close one, but somehow ended up scoring 21 points in the 4th quarter. Do the Vikings have a franchise quarterback on their hands in JJ McCarthy? But hey, if we get some more interesting, exciting, hilarious tidbits from their announced team, then I think that that would be a win for everybody. There you have it, everyone. That is your first week of the 2025 NFL season recap and overreactions. Let me know what you thought of week 1 of the NFL season in the comments down below. I'll see you very soon with my next video. Until then, all I have left to say is bye-bye.